Welcome to 3 on the Ones and Twos with your hosts, Tom, Cassie, and James. Just 3 old friends talking about their favorite records. Think of it as the coolest book club for music nerds.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Excellent.
Excellent.
Hello.
It really is. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta. I should say Decatur, Georgia. We want to give a special shout out to Jason Waller and everyone working behind the scenes at Waller's Coffee Shop in Decatur. We're here for the BLT Fest. This is awesome.
This is awesome.
And we got a special guest who I met.
Out-of-town guest.
Yeah, an out-of-town guest.
One of our out-of-town guests.
Yeah, and we love
great.
that. I met Daniel Gay only during the pandemic, a couple years ago, doing live streams. Got him involved in Come On to My House, got him involved with BLT. And
It's a long-distance relationship.
Yeah, and probably the best house guest I've ever had. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Know. And
Maybe that's not saying much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to live in C11. I love that there's a flute in the background. Go Charlie Thompson.
Oh, you're hearing that too.
Yes. And then, what a wonderful adult. What a wonderful relationship we formed as friends and fans of each other, fans of music, and fellow artists and fellow musicians. He came and played the Come On to My House festival in March. He's here for the BLT Fest, but we said let's try to squeeze in and maximize as much as we could on this trip. So we recorded yesterday at a record coming out amazing.
Might as well record
And
a
now we
record while
have
you're
him
in
as a
town.
guest.
At Diamond Street. Right?
You're just meeting James. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to
Today.
meet you.
I'll
Nice
vouch
to
for
meet
him.
you.
Great to meet you, my
But
friend.
you and Cassie have become good friends.
Yeah,
So Cassie
yeah,
might want to
yeah,
say a few
yeah,
things.
Cassie treated me to
Yes.
a birthday dinner.
Birthday.
Which was
Yes,
fantastic.
it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was Daniel's
Also,
birthday.
happy
a couple days
birthday.
ago.
Oh, thank you so
Happy
much.
birthday.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Cassie, you want to say anything?
Leo,
And then
you're
pass-
a Leo, right?
Yeah,
I'm a Leo.
Very good.
I am not only a huge fan of this person as a person, but I'm a huge fan of this person as a musician.
Thank you.
I absolutely, I love your music. I love the songs that you write.
Yeah.
I love the covers that you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you do covers, you take them and you recognize them, but you personalize them, and you
Wonderful.
make them. You make them your own. You make them almost their own, animal, like
Kind
a
of
new animal. And it's like,
reinterpretation.
yes,
I really
I'm
appreciate
such
that.
a
Thank
huge
you.
fan.
Thanks
so
so
I'm
much.
really, really excited to.
Thank you for
have
having
you
me.
guys.
That's a great way to say
Appreciate
it, too.
it.
He
Thanks.
makes it his own. And I was so glad. I love when I introduce people to you, and you're like, I'm in the Daniel Gay fan club. I'm a fan.
I am.
And we had so much fun because I think the first time I saw you, I said, because your music is sarcastic and sardonic and has just the right amount of hate, but also the right amount of love.
It
And
does though.
here
And
we're-
lot
humor.
of
and
hate.
humor.
Here
But
we're,
it's
and
humor
we're
too,
going to
yeah.
get into you being a school teacher and stuff, but I remember saying in this before we even got to know each other as we do now, I was like, you are Billy Bragg, who I love, and Randy Newman went out on a date. Like, I mean, like, there's this,
It's
there's
as flattering
this,
as it gets for me. Thank you.
and it's funny because someone else might be like, Randy Newman, what? You're like, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Because you told me you played a show and you played the song Short People, and some lady was offended. You're like, Randy Newman, who's 4'11", he wrote the song.
Yeah.
All right, so let's introduce him. That's like one of the longest intros we've ever done.
I appreciate
but,
the kind words.
Our
my
goal
friend.
on the show, James and Cassie agree, is to make our guests blush, to say wonderful things
Oh.
about him. So,
Well, thank you guys.
Fans,
Great.
fans,
So,
fans.
So,
Yes,
honored,
right.
honored to be here.
So
Thank
our
you.
guest is
Daniel Gay. Round of
from
applause.
Worcester,
Round of
from
applause.
Worcester,
Massachusetts.
By way of
The
Vermont.
heart of the Commonwealth. I'm a Vermonter, yeah, but I live in Worcester, Mass.
Yep.
Cold north,
Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful cold.
south
And
of the
you-
Mason-Dixon line
and
today.
you teach school.
I'm a school teacher,
right?
public school teacher.
Right.
I teach refugees and newcomers from all over the world. I teach at a school called the New Citizen Center. And,
Thank you for your service, man.
Well, thanks, man. I teach history and English, and I love it.
Awesome.
I love what I do, and I play music. I'm a musician. It's probably how I describe myself first, but teaching has been, it's a good fit.
And we met
who
on
I
a
am.
Leatherface fan club.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
you know.
that's
But
where
also, I
come
want to
from.
say, like, which I think is like so cool. Did you say that you've challenged yourself by taking Leatherface songs and playing them on the piano?
Yes.
And like making that's.
And I heard
that's like,
one.
And
yeah.
the things that's the kind of cover he does, you
That's
know, where it's like
amazing.
and
Yeah.
they sound incredible.
that.
And I
you
happen-
recognize
yeah.
the song, but it's
They're so
a new
important
song.
to me
Yeah.
as a band, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know we're not talking about them, but it's an important band. That's how we were introduced.
And I happened to hear the cover, and I said, well, I'm good friends with the band. I've toured with the band. I'm going to send it to them with your permission. He goes, what, you would? And the next thing you know, he goes, wait a minute, I just discovered some of your music. And we started talking back and forth.
This is your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great relationship. The greatest thing to come out of the pandemic. You know,
man.
Pandemic had so many great things.
Right.
This is definitely.
Pandemic had so many great things.
It's been, I'd say, a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's been a mixed
Well,
bag.
I got
This is
news
one
for
of
you.
the
This,
good
It's interesting, the positive thing.
this show, 3 on the Ones and Twos, is a
Right.
result of the pandemic.
For sure,
It's
yeah.
awesome. Me, James,
Absolutely.
and Cassie talking.
Yeah.
But we also, you know, we could go on for hours, but we don't want to do that to the fans. So let's talk about this record you picked and why. So where is it at?
Oh,
And
it's right
explain
here.
a little bit.
And your record is Philip Glass solo piano.
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right.
And I chose this record. I thought about it a lot. It doesn't necessarily reflect what I play as a musician, but as an influence, I think this record really changed my life in a lot of profound ways. I'm a piano player, but I love punk rock. And I found in school, I studied music in school. When I discovered Philip Glass, it just felt like there was a common link between what he was doing and what the music I grew up with was. And with this particular record, I'm a pianist, and he composes music for film, you know, orchestrates things. The piano stuff is like the true definition of minimalism. And I love the idea of minimalism as a philosophy, also as a genre of music. But I think we confuse it a lot thinking it's simplification, and it's not. It's just like this, it's a different approach to life, it's a different approach to music. And with this particular record, I teach English in school, I love to read, I love literature, and he really used Kafka, you know, the Metamorphosis as his sort of basis for this album. And I feel like that piece of music just does incredible justice to the literature, but it also reflects anybody going through changes. You listen to these 5 parts, and it's this cycle. And the way that he does it, he doesn't always follow rules of meter, he doesn't follow rules of rhythm, but he takes these patterns, and I think I don't know where he gets them. He gets them from nature, from his surroundings, but they're absolutely beautiful. And they work on levels, so many different levels. You can listen to it closely and study it and lose yourself in it. Or it can be furniture music, like Eric Satie. It can be in the background and you can just have it there. And I think that's a testament to who he is. It can work for anybody. And I love the universality of it, but I also think it's just, as a record, I think it's the most beautiful document of piano music I've ever heard. And
It is.
I've committed myself to learning his music. I play a lot of his stuff live, and I've seen him a few times, and I just think, it's just an absolutely incredibly important record to me. And as a piano player, there's nothing quite like it. Through him, I was able to discover people like Steve Reich, Sean Tiersen, this whole world of music, Terry Riley.
Love it.
And it's just incredible stuff, John Cage. And then digging deeper, I teach classical piano and really getting in touch with Eric Satie and Debussy and some of these influences that he has. I feel like, for me, this record will always, it's timeless.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
Thank you for reintroducing it. I mean, it's so much fun when guests do that, right?
Yeah, and I had to double check to make sure I was listening to the right one, because he has obviously so much that he's done musically and put out. It's almost like, oh my God, I was kind of nervous that I had because I have a relationship with Philip Glass on a very high level, and I can tell you my Philip Glass story later, but I was worried that I was going to be listening to the wrong album, and then we come in today and you're like, no, it's this one, and it's like, but it was that one.
Oh, it's Crocodiles. It's Crocodiles,
Metamorphosis,
right?
for sure. Because when I was listening, I was like, it's got to be Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And it's that, and the other thing I think with this is how much reverence he has for film, literature, and all these things, and he pours all of that into this without words. And I think, and without pictures, but he creates these visuals with his music. And there is the Metamorphosis stuff, but also on this album, the Wichita Vortex, which is a Ginsberg poem. It's absolutely, mind-blowing poem. And, he wrote that to be read alongside that poem at a performance.
With the cadence of the words of
with the cadence.
Yeah.
And it sort of transcends any sort of traditional meter, but it absolutely works with that, with that piece of literature. And the other thing is like the Errol Morris Thin Blue Line, like he composed the music for that, and that's such a devastating.
Yeah, which Metamorphosis is actually like, I think like the first two Metamorphoses is the Kafka. The second two are the 3 and 4 are Thin Blue Line, and then 5 like which I love is that they are different, like because even in 4 and 5, which are like Thin Blue Line, there are things that he uses from 1 and 2, which are the Kafka, that ties in, like the little notes and stuff that are repetitive.
It's a constant reminder.
I didn't think I was familiar with Philip Glass. It's not, because usually when I think of like piano stuff, or I hear things that are like, I automatically think of a lot of
piano.
I think of a lot of like some like classical music that gives me a lot of tension rather than, and this is so soothing.
Yeah.
But my husband's a huge Philip Glass fan. Apparently, we've never discussed it because I think he knew that
He was excited.
He's like, I'm not going to play this.
He was excited, Daniel. He was excited, Daniel.
One thing I noticed, like after listening to this after listening to this several times, it's like I've heard these songs before. You've definitely heard this, or you've heard things like we watch Westworld, and like if you watch Westworld, like the composer that does that, I mean, uses a lot of the same. Obviously was very, very influenced by, and also the composer for Westworld reminds me a lot of like some things you'll do, because you'll hear the piano version of like a well-known song, and you're just like, I recognize that, and then you like put it together, and then later they're kind of like putting this, it's really, but one thing I noticed about Greg was definitely, he didn't say this, but I can tell he was influenced by this because of the repetition that he'll do
all the arpeggiation
with like little slight changes, and I noticed that very early on listening to old remixer stuff that he played for me. That
it's him and Brian Kinchelow in the stuff they did remixers that we do kind of now.
Shout out to
Greg
and B. Kinch.
All the arpeggiated stuff totally is like that's Philip Glass coming from him.
And I could hear that, and without him telling me that, I was like.
Yeah.
And that really.
And how wonderful is it?
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
It bleeds into like
it influenced more than a piano player.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Leads into like weird punk rock kind of post rock kind of stuff.
I think people discover him who are open-minded people. The Brian Enos, the David Bowies. They were fans in the '60s of what he was doing.
Right. And he worked with all of them, right?
He worked with those types of people. The other thing I think, this man's in his 80s now, and from my perspective, I love all types of music, but the most interesting stuff in my mind happening right now is in the world of classical music. I think guys like Max Richter and Jan Tiersen and guys who are making music like this, he's the godfather.
Right.
And this stuff still holds up as much as any of that. And what
the
you were
seminal type.
Absolutely.
Like it sort of makes the blueprint of like what these guys
and it
are.
doesn't dull at all. It's not you're looking at it in a historical context. It's like alive still. So I think and that's why I chose this record. It's just deeply personal. I also think from in the modern world, we're all trying to be more mindful. This is mindful music. Like this is you can kind of get the tunnel vision and focus yourself with this stuff. I play it as a school teacher.
Focus on the good. Yeah.
You played in class?
Sure. Absolutely.
You can focus on it, but you can also you can't also just like chill to it. It's just it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Well, it creates a mood and sets a tone. Yeah. So if you're walking into your classroom, and I love, because we've had conversations about what you do for some of these kids, and they're beautiful kids who come here with hope. I mean, that is just so amazing. And
they all have hope. Any
influence you can have on them, which seems like, it's all wonderful influence. Teaching them to love the right things,
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
And you don't teach music. You don't teach music at all, because I've seen you do
I do
some in
teach
like
music privately, or I'll do it in the classroom as sort of an
so because I've seen videos of you in the classroom, and it's
in school it'd be tough to. As musicians, everything's so personal. Like you want to insert yourself into it. I think it's difficult to do that in schools. For me, from where I'm coming from.
And you also can't do a Zoom call either.
Can't do a Zoom call, no. But I think that this record also, my mother was Jewish. His history is really pretty fascinating. He grew up in Baltimore. His dad had a music store.
The thing about the music store I thought was so cool, because it's like that obviously influenced him, because his dad was so cool that he would like.
He heard everything.
Yeah, because his dad would just. his dad would let people buy records and let them return it because he was always trying to get people to listen to new things. So he would be like, hey, try this even though you haven't heard it. If you don't like it, you can turn it back.
Always bring it back.
And so he obviously, his dad had that mindset. So you know that he did the same with his son, which gave his son like so much.
And he's also, like, from a human perspective, his mother, you know, they're Jewish families, mother welcomes all of these new Holocaust survivors into her home. Like, and I think that humanist sort of element, that's in his music. And there's no words, and I think that's the profound part of him. It's like, you can find that without hearing, you don't have to read an interview, you don't have to read anything, it's like, it's right there.
Oh man, that's the mark of an amazing composer, of course, is that it can stand on its own. Like you're saying, it can have so many different moods. You can go high, you can go deep with it.
Yeah.
It speaks through without words. It gives you all these different feelings, and it can tell a story.
For sure.
And also, I love the part about writing songs that can be, where poems can be read over, things like that. I always think of like the end of Love Supreme, of the John Coltrane song, and you know, in the album, the end where it's the prayer that he's playing the prayer through a saxophone.
We need to talk about that record at some point.
Well, that's a diversion.
That's on the list.
But that reminds me of what you're saying.
I think they have a lot in
poem.
common, and I think they're coming from similar places, you know. And I think even guys like, you know, I hate to bring in guys like Joe Strummer, but I think they're all coming from this human.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
They're just kind of, they have so much in common, and I know.
Joe Strummer's mentioned in every episode as like a little Easter egg.
Yeah,
good, I got it in.
So, and the thing is for someone like Philip Glass to inspire and influence Jan Tiersen, who I love, Thurston Moore, Daniel Gay, Greg Pate, and everyone in the middle. You know, just did a rhyme by accident.
It was excellent.
But the thing
Daniel
is,
Gray and Greg Pate.
and this week Tom Cheshire, because I've listened to it a few times, and I'll say I've had some anxiety in my own head and body and life, and this has helped me focus. And I'm like, all right, well, this stuff you can't fix, so why are you sweating over it? How about enjoy the moment? You know?
That's what, and this is as mindful as it gets. And with that Ginsberg poem, you know, the music sits separately than the poem. But, you know, every once in a while I'll revisit that poem. Everything he ever wrote is still relevant. But this, but you can see it. Like, I can see, you know, it's sort of based, Ginsberg was really influenced by Indian composers and Indian culture. So is Glass. It's like there's a huge, the patterns in Indian music, the lack of meter. But
the math, the science, everything.
The math of it.
I also think it's like the story behind it is so cute because they were really good friends, and they just happened to run into each other at this bookstore. And I think it was like in East Village, and then they just decided, hey, I'm gonna write, like I'm gonna compose something based on one of your poems, and they just reached for a book and just picked one, and that's how they ended. And then he just use that, and that's like, I mean, this everything I'm just saying, nothing of it's new. It's just on the liner notes, but like there are a lot of.
Well, the thing is and we talk about this because we strive for every show to get better and more interesting, and that's what we hope to achieve. And we realize, you know, again, shout out to Wallers. This is wonderful, you know, like. Because you could have original ideas, but you could, by the way, you could fail at that, you know. And it's always been about like whoever our guest is, whoever it is, talking about like where you are, like what it did, like Kafka. Like I went to Kafka's house when I was in Prague. Like it was important to me, you know what I mean?
Right.
And when these little things, this is what makes the show hopefully better and more interesting, and also makes you a better human and a better artist.
Yeah, I think like just seeing people's perspective on music. Like I watch the show, I'm a fan of your show.
Thank you so much.
And the diversity of records that you choose is, I think, the greatest strength.
We try to. Sometimes we go into our like comfort zones, but sometimes we go out of our comfort zones.
And I think all of us, like even though we identify with a certain like genre, maybe all of us have. We go outside of that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What about seeing Philip Glass? Like, do you have any?
Well, the greatest performance I saw was the Kronos Quartet performed Nosferatu.
Oh wow!
Wow.
He conducted, and it was at the Orpheum Theater in Boston.
Beautiful
it was like
theater.
the late '90s probably.
Yep.
And you know, it was just like one of those nights. It was in the fall. It was like everything about
everything was
perfect.
Wow.
The ghosts were whistling in the theater.
And the movie, you know, the movie is it's antiquated, you know.
Sure.
Like you have to buy into what it is and like know it from a historical perspective. But the music that Kronos Quartet performs is just it's terrifying.
Wow.
It's
Really? It actually
unsettling.
By the way, you want music to terrify.
It was an
The first time I saw
unsettling
the
image.
cramps. Yeah, exactly.
You had the
know.
lights, and the musicians are silhouetted behind the screen, and it was just like
Like a really cool thing.
it was
for, like,
just insane. Yeah, it was one of
like-
those. Yeah, it's like seeing David Blaine
Right.
do something in front of you.
Yeah.
You're like,
Something
this is magic.
yeah.
So it was also a piece of art as well to visually to watch.
And it wasn't his piano music, it was string quartet.
Right.
But there's so much commonality. The way he composes his music, yeah, I don't want to say it all sounds the same. It certainly doesn't. But it's linked by the way that he composes.
Right.
And what he did for Nosferatu is just. Man,
Yeah.
it's a great record.
Say what he does is so special, just because me not being a piano, whatever, that I could hear things that he was doing, that it was just like, as a non-musician, especially as like a lover of music that normally doesn't just listen to like just piano.
Yeah.
I could just hear all these amazing things that he was doing, like how he was linking and how he was telling the stories he was telling them, and I could get his style just from like these
you'll
like
hear a
certain
song
amount
and
of
know
time,
it's
and
him. You'll hear a song and know it's him.
or you can also hear a song and know that whoever did it, that it's not him,
They
but
loved
whoever
it.
did it.
You can sink your teeth into,
definitely-
and also I think so much piano from the layman, from the civilian side. You know, you think about just virtuosity. You know.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And of course that's great, but what I think people miss are the composers who obviously are virtuosos, or know the instrument inside and out, know music inside and out, but also create something that's not meant to just impress you.
Right, it's thinking.
It's really to make you feel, to elicit all these moods and to do all these
Absolutely.
things. And I think a lot of classical piano music, especially like from our classical upbringings,
what we know.
Of what we know, you kind of think more about the virtuosity more than the thing. But I'll tell you my Philip Glass story really quick. So I was introduced to Philip Glass through Koyaanisqatsi. We always had that
Fantastic.
movie when I was living with Ed Rawls and Rich Morris. Always watched it with Philip Glass, sometimes with records, sometimes whatever.
Yep.
And one of the first, not like one of the first dates, but early in my relationship with Sue, my wife, I took her to the Fox so we could see Koyaanisqatsi with Philip Glass
Oh, wow.
conducting.
Oh man,
wow.
that's
with
fantastic.
the band,
Yeah.
everything
Oh.
played live to the movie.
That's a similar.
That's
Yeah,
nice,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
And I think he was doing Nosferatu as well on another night.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel like
awesome.
it was a series,
Yeah.
and it was like, we're going to see Koyaanisqatsi. Sue didn't even know what she was getting into at all.
She was blown away though.
We all went. She was definitely blown away. Definitely by about 90 minutes in, it was like, okay, I think we're good to, like, I think I've had enough. Like, I'm just like
It's an assault on
Intense,
your
intense.
senses. It's all of your senses.
just
like,
to see that played live. I remember we were above, sort of like higher up,
And the
because
Fox
it was
is
like
such a beautiful
cheap
theater, yeah.
seats, and you could see down below, and all I saw was just all the keyboards and everybody going like perfectly, doing all of the interlocking.
Six
Arpeggiated
different people
stuff.
doing
Just
different stuff.
unbelievable, and him there, and just the movie playing, and it was insane. It was
sounds
intense.
cool.
That's an awesome story.
So
James. That's an awesome
wonderful,
story.
man.
That's
One other thing, just from a music perspective, as a pianist, like I went to school, I studied classical music, and I think we all, even Philip Glass, you all study the same people: Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. You're all that's the Western reference for classical music, and he studied those people too, and he still in his 80s has ultimate reverence for Bach and those people.
Yeah.
But I think what he did is, and why I respect him, what he has so much in common with the punk rockers and these guys, is he broke every rule of classical music.
He did what he wanted
He took
to do.
meter away. But it's tonal. He's not like it's melodic. It's beautiful. There's not. It's not like Stravinsky or Schoenberg, where it's like Rites of Spring, where people are scraping on violins. He's not doing that. But it's completely out of the box stuff. And people might listen to this and say it's easy listening. That's possible. People could hear this and say like this is supermarket music, but they're missing the point.
You're not listening.
They're wrong. They're wrong.
They're wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
I
assholes.
normally wouldn't say that but like, yeah, they're wrong. I mean, it's like, how do you not get? I don't know. When there's supermarket, takes you in too much of like a. He conveys too much emotion just in such simple whatever to really say it's easy like listening. I think
it's too heavy. You'd never hear like Philip Glass or Publix.
I mean, it's like it's just
maybe an app.
maybe
you might hear Alanis Morissette Muzak. Like,
Philip Glass style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the vein of Glass.
Although at my dentist, I remember we always had like, TVs or whatever. Even in the 90s, the dentist I had like a TV. Do you want to watch a movie? And I've always wanted to. There's one that I always picked that was one of the Apollo movies that Eno did the score to.
So
for the Apollo. So I'd watch that as like my dentist. So whenever I listen to Apollo,
you have like a choice. You go to your dentist and you're like, what would you like to watch?
They have a little list and they're like, what do you want to see?
I would
He's like, I want to watch Wizard of Oz with Dark Side of the Moon playing. Can we make that happen?
Exactly. And give me that nitrous or whatever they do. Like,
I want to go to that dentist.
But I was thinking that, should I do Koyana Scottsy someday?
Yes, you
in
should.
The dentist? The only problem is you don't want to do
soup, the Milks Brothers.
I did a comedy once and it was disaster. You start laughing, you're like, oh yeah. They're like trying to clean your teeth.
You don't want to laugh.
I was like
you don't
watching.
want to laugh at the dentist.
Laughing hurts everything here.
But, yeah. But anyway, that was just a.
That's good, Russell. I want to go to that dentist.
Yeah. When you think about, Philip Glass. The point I was making was about. Philip Glass is not going to be piped in from somewhere. You have to seek it out, but it is incredibly enriching.
But the weird thing is, though, the weird thing is, even though I was not familiar with Philip Glass, the minute when I listened to this, after I was like,
you are familiar.
I was like, I've heard these before. I've heard them in somewhere. Probably not the grocery store. Definitely not the dentist.
You're lucky if you hear like Sweet Jane at a Publix or Whole Foods.
Right.
But the thing
it's
is,
the greatest day of your life.
You probably heard about it through people like Michael Zira from Swans and Thurston Moore talking about it.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
to be honest with you,
I've heard
that's how I heard
of
about it.
I recognize the song.
It's in the
It's in like our lexicon.
Yes,
of the world.
It's something that you.
I certainly heard about him through No Wave.
Right, but you've heard the songs without even like hearing his name. You know the songs.
Yes.
Like the songs sound familiar, even if you don't know. Like you're not familiar with Philip Glass. You've heard the name Philip Glass, but you've also heard the songs. Like you're like.
And also just to know that you hear that name and you know whether you ever know, it's like just demanded respect. It's like you're like, no, this is a serious man. This is a serious man.
He's like this guy. He's like delicate.
I mean, especially when you like see his. His resume of what he's like there. Yeah. It's insane. Like just.
The other thing with him is like he sought out as performance spaces. He's a classical musician getting recognition in Europe and the United States. He's asked to play places, but he sort of shunned traditional concert halls. He played like art galleries, places like this. Warehouses. This is a guy who was doing that stuff because. He wasn't looking to do what everybody else was doing.
How revolutionary to think about it from a classical perspective.
And 60s,
that you're not in a concert hall.
Right.
You're intentionally
to break down
from
barriers,
that and say, look, this is not where. Of course, that's a great place to hear the music. It's designed for that, but at the same time, I want to bring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And change things. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
This is our first.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about it as classical, but you're thinking about like we're covering different areas on the show, and this is kind of like our first classical type.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put it in that category. Like you're not gonna have fun when you go to the classical section of a record store, and I'm not looking in that
what is
section.
It like is it more contemporary? Is it counted as more contemporary or what?
Glass album's not really sitting there, even though maybe it would. It's just I think
you're thinking of Beethoven.
I don't know when
I think he might be in a no wave section. Right, he really might be.
Those super those record stores that are super organized, like little subgenres.
I could see him as being considered classical. I mean, I could see not considered classical like classical, but like there's. I mean, just especially in today's day, like you look at him and he's like just his impact. I mean, I think that there's certain I don't know enough about this music.
I think you're absolutely.
But I could say I know for a fact I've been to, let's say, I don't think Believer Bob's is there anymore in Greenwich Village, rest in peace. But I could say for a fact I know traveling in LA or New York or San Francisco, I've been to record stores, and Philip Glass, I know for a fact, has been in the punk section.
Like
I
its
know
own
for a fact,
section.
yeah.
He's like,
Here
yeah.
are our Philip Glass albums.
Yeah, so
Check it out.
It might say the Generation X album, and then there's Philip
I was
Glass
like,
album. Like,
so
which
is
is
because
wonderful.
my mind did kind of go to classic, and I was worried because I like the Beethoven, all that. I can't
It's not your
personally,
thing.
at all. And but then
love
I ended up like. So then I was like, oh, I do like this, but then I was kind of like, oh, I like it, but is it all going to just kind of be the same? And it's not, because I can actually pick out like my favorites and like the parts of like which ones are my favorites, and I love that about this, that like somehow I think it would just connect with so many people if they gave it a like there's so many different ways people can connect with this, like.
But now, like, Greg can put it on in the house.
And now Greg can put it. I mean, he's been
right. Greg Pate. Thank you.
Can put it on
Cook
at the
dinner
house.
to
It's
this.
like
You can listen close. It's great.
it's like
stuff.
I think
all the behind
and
the
I know that
scenes
he's always
stuff.
like really excited when it's like I'm in like this show is like introducing me to stuff that like he likes to, and he's just like yes,
win-win.
yes.
All right.
Like,
She's
converted.
You get to buy
That's
the
good.
album.
That's a great byproduct.
Well,
of
also
what
like
you're doing.
I like it.
He
and we
didn't
can like.
have it, and he's like, ooh.
He's eventually
kinda
getting
want
me
it.
a little bit closer to his.
He's pulling
world.
you in his direction.
So I guess the moral of today's story is everyone needs more glass in their life.
That's right.
Oh my God! You write that?
Just wrote it just now.
That's excellent.
Bring a little glass in
I'm
your
so
life.
proud of all of us. I'm so glad of the new
This is a
friendships
blast.
that
Absolute
we make,
blast. Thank
even
you so
through when
much.
times are tough.
you.
Daniel Gay, Wallers. Thank you everyone
thank
for
Kelly.
watching. Shout out to Kelly. Shout out to
Trackside.
Tavern. Shout out
Everybody
to
who's
Esther, Death
allowed us
Pickle.
to
Shout out to Matthew Derry,
record.
Darrow, Billy Inman, B. Kinch. Love is all around. It's up to you, man.
Shout out to my wife.
Yes.
There you go.
We were hoping you'd be here.
My
We'll get you on the
kids.
next
Sid,
our
Jarvis,
next
Mirabelle.
visit.
Yes.
Shout
Definitely.
out to Philip Glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Philip Glass, when you listen to this, just know you're loved in Atlanta. You're loved in Worcester, Massachusetts.
I am so happy that you came down for this, and definite shout out to your family for
thank you.
for
Letting us have you on loan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for letting us have
Thank
you
you.
for the
Bring you
weekend
down.
and come down, and it was your birthday, and you
Appreciate
traveled
it.
Happy
traveled for your
birthday.
birthday.
Yes,
And
yes.
and came down to talk because we've really been looking forward to having you on the show.
This has been a
And
thrill, an absolute honor, and to talk about this record with such great music
Yeah,
fans.
and
people.
and
Thank
we're
you.
gonna have a great day of just wonderful music. And again, we always try to end on these positive notes. We're open to suggestions. Everyone wants to send in questions.
Yes.
And new guests and new records. And we're having the time of our life. So we hope you're having, at least close to that, a good time watching.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Love is
Thank
all
you.
around.
Thanks, guys.